I get it, you standing in front of a wall of speaker options, wondering if you're about to drop a good chunk of cash on something that will just sit there looking pretty. You don't want to end up with a pair that sounds great on paper, but leaves you reaching for the TV volume every time a dialogue line hits. And you're probably asking yourself whether a set like the Klipsch the 9ii can actually fit into your living room without turning it into a mini theater that only works on movie night. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. Let's walk through what it's really like to plug these into a typical setup, who's likely to feel the payoff, and where the compromises hide. First off, the 9ii are marketed as powered speakers, which means you won't need a separate amp or receiver to get them humming. That's a huge convenience if you've been living with a tiny bookshelf speaker, or a TV's built-in audio, and you want something louder without a whole new AV rack. The moment you pull them out of the box, you'll notice the sleek red oak veneer Klipsch is clearly aiming at a style-conscious space rather than a garage studio vibe. The wood finish does a good job of blending with mid-century modern furniture, but it also means you have to be mindful of placement. A tight corner will amplify bass that can become a bit muddy, and the glossy surface can catch fingerprints if you're constantly moving them around. What makes these speakers feel a step ahead is the built-in streaming and Dolby Atmos processing. The Dirac Live room correction engine runs automatically the first time you power up, listening to a short test tone, and then tweaking the output to match the acoustics of your room. In practice, that means you can set the pair on a side table, hit play on a Spotify track, and hear a more balanced sound than a generic Bluetooth speaker would give you. The Atmos capability isn't a full ceiling speaker setup, but the upward-firing drivers do add a subtle sense of height to movies and games that support the format. If you've got a soundbar that pretends to do Atmos, but just relies on virtual processing, you'll notice that these speakers actually push sound upward, giving a faint, but perceptible lift to rain or helicopter rotors. The wireless high-as stereo option is another angle worth mentioning. Klipsch includes a proprietary Wi-Fi module that lets you stream lossless files from a phone or a PC without a cable. For audiophiles who have a growing collection of FLAC or ALAC files, this is a nice shortcut. No need to buy an extra DAC or a separate network streamer. I tried a 24-bit 96kHz jazz album from my library, and the detail in the cymbals and the breathing of the sax sounded clean, not overprocessed. That said, the Wi-Fi connection can be a little finicky in houses with crowded routers. I had to move my router a couple of feet closer to avoid occasional dropouts when I streamed from the kitchen. If your network is already saturated with multiple devices, you might find yourself reaching for a wired Ethernet adapter, which the speakers support via the HDMI 2.1 port. Speaking of HDMI 2.1, that's a feature that usually lives on a TV or a receiver, not a bookshelf speaker. The 9ii include an HDMI input that can take a direct video source, think a gaming console, or a streaming stick, and then pass the audio through the speakers while also sending the video back to your TV via the HDMI ARC return. The advantage here is you can bypass your TV's internal audio processor entirely, letting the speakers handle any Dolby Vision or HDR audio metadata. For a gamer who uses a PlayStation 5, this means you get the full object-based audio mix without needing a separate sound system. The trade-off is you lose the ability to use the TV's built-in speakers for anything else while the HDMI is occupied, which could be a nuisance if you occasionally watch TV with the TV speakers only. Who should consider buying these? If you already own a 4K TV, enjoy streaming services that support Atmos, and have a moderately sized living room, say 1,215 feet across, these speakers can replace a traditional soundbar and give you a more immersive experience without the clutter of a full 5.1 system. They are also a decent entry point for people who want wireless high-as playback, but don't want to assemble a network of separate components. The price point lands them in the premium mid-range tier, so you're paying for the brand name, the built-in DSP, and the aesthetic finish. If you're a casual listener who is satisfied with a TV's built-in audio or a cheap Bluetooth speaker, you'll likely not notice the extra depth these bring, and you might be better off allocating that budget toward a better TV or a larger screen. On the flip side, there are a few practical drawbacks that show up after a few weeks of use. The bass response, while respectable for an 8-inch driver, still leans on the tight side. Without